What?
This is the 20th PEN Oakland Literary Awards. And we have a very hard-working board, and all of them are illustrious authors. And we got some good press here. I was minding my own business one morning when Norma Miller called my house and asked for Floyd Salas, who's the president of PEN Oakland. And they had, I don't know what they talked about, maybe boxing. Because, yeah, Floyd's a terrific boxer.
He's exactly my size. Look at each other.
Yeah, you think you
I'll
can,
weigh you 20 pounds from all.
but you think you can take it now?
I always remember that.
You always in better shape?
Especially now.
You don't mess with Floyd because Floyd was a boxing coach, University of California, Berkeley. So anyway, so Norma Miller calls my house, and I call, give me Floyd's number. And Norma Miller, he acknowledged receiving the 1996 Josephine Miles Book Award for his book, Picasso. And he said, part of the pleasure of receiving the PEN Oakland Josephine Miles Book Award for 1996 is that I can now think of myself as an honorary citizen of Oakland. Not a sister city, but a West Coast mate to Brooklyn, my old place. And that part of Oakland is disappearing. Now you have people downtown. We were at this place, the Hot Rod. Remember that Hot Rod's thing? Yeah. Now it's like some sort of yuppie place there. And we met a woman, young woman, I think she's under 30, and she said she wanted to make $2 million. And so now Oakland's being inhabited by people who like movies starring Reese Witherspoon. And line up around ice cream parlors, and you see the lines. You know, from the, but anyway, I mean, they mean well, and we welcome them. But Oakland is the traditional blue-collar town, literary capital of California. So it's not just drive-by shootings, drive-by literature. But some of the people who are illustrious writers, distinguished writers, were criminals. Jack London was a criminal. He's an oyster pirate and a mugger. He used to go around knocking the hats of Chinese persons, knock their hats off. He's a mugger. Joaquin Miller, a distinguished writer, wrote a book called Life Among Modocs. Excellent book. He was a jailbreaker. His son was a stagecoach robber, and his daughter was arrested for prostitution in San Francisco. And, you know, Oakland begins with a crime wave. We had somebody from the Columbia Law School graduate came out here, named Henry Carpenter. He changed it to Henri Carpentier, something. Henry came out here. And he leased the land from the Peralta family. Their home is still there in the Fruitvale district. They're the first European family to settle here. They came with the De Anza expedition, 1700s. And so the last king of Spain left them Oakland and Berkeley. What a gift. And things have gone downhill ever since. No. But anyway, Henry Carpenter leased land from them, and then he sold the land. And that's the beginning of Oakland. And by the time the Peraltas had won in court, Oakland was inhabited by all of us, and Henry Carpenter declared himself the first mayor. So there are a lot of criminals, a lot of the railroad barons, a lot of people that names that the streets are named after were like made their money in the railroads. Wow, but there can be no better symbol of Oakland than Floyd, because Floyd grew up in Oakland. And he is an amazing writer, Buffalo Nickel. I first heard of Floyd Salas when I lived in New York. He had a book called Tattoo the Wicked Cross, which was published by Grove Press. We thought that was real hip. I mean, Grove. I mean, that was the place to go. That was where they published Allen Ginsberg, and Gilbert Sorrentino was the editor and all that. So we recognized Floyd there. Then I ran into Floyd again in the 1970s when I was made head of the Poetry in Schools program, which caused an uproar. You know, they taking over, you know. It's like the original Tea Party. I mean, you know, it's a, you know, the poetry world, the cutthroat world. You know, art world. At least in the business where you get a martini lunch or something. People are broke. And so Floyd and I transformed the Poetry in Schools program. I mean, when we like took over for a while, it was like all people from the same background. You know what I'm talking about. Just look at the Library of America selection catalog. You know what I mean. And that changed. And then Floyd and I decided to found PEN Oakland. And one of the two anchors, Claire Ortalda and Kip McMillan, John Curl, some others, they do volunteer work. We're not like that yacht club PEN in the East, where you can let a millionaire, you can have dinner with a millionaire, and the millionaire will have a writer at the table. You know what I mean? And they have, as a matter of fact, they entertained George Schultz a few years ago, had a party on the yacht. Well, we're not like the PEN in Los Angeles, where they have receptions in Beverly Hills Hotel. It's $500 or $600 a night. We're a blue-collar PEN. We're always broke. So during intermission, we ask for some money. And I'm going to plug my book for some money. Powwow. And it's back there. It's $20. It's lonely. And this book was written with Carla Blank, who's in the audience. Carla Blank was been traveling around a couple nights ago. She was with Baryshnikov and David Byrne and Robert Wilson in New York. And then she choreographed a performance with them. And then a few weeks ago, she was in Washington, D.C. directing a play at the Kennedy Center. But anyway, her name's on here. And Floyd's in here. And if you want to read a short story about how Oakland was in the 1940s, this is the best short story you can read. This story is as good as anything Jack London wrote. Now, Claire Ortalda is going to take over the MC. And she did such a great job last year that we drafted her to do it this year. How about a hand of applause? Claire is PEN Oakland's treasurer. She's been published in numerous literary journals. She's not a bad playwright either. She's a recipient of the Hackney Hugh Chesterfield Writers Film Project and other fiction and poetry prizes, including Georgia Slate University's Fiction Prize for a short story, A Village Dog, a study of corporate neo-colonialism. Oh, we need that. You listen to NPR, there's such a thing as, colonialism or neo-colonialism or any kind of colonialism. I think they're subscribed to by 60% of people who shop at gourmet markets. She has recently completed a novel, The Burlap Madonna, about the corrosive effects of the lust for fame. She's going to present or introduce the respondents and the authors, and we're going to limit them to 6 minutes. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. You know that, right? People get up there before they go on forever. It's like a poetry marathon. And for 6 months, 6 minutes. 6 months. 6 minutes. We can find that, and Tennessee will hold up a sign. 1 minute. You got 1 minute left. Claire will talk.
Forgot my program. Thank you very much. I just to be even more draconian, what Ishmael really means about the 6 minutes is that 6 minutes total for the introducers and for the reading, please. Al Young, who's on our board, and is he here? No. He always says, leave them wanting more. So that's when you have a bunch of readers, that's kind of the key. I first want to briefly introduce Floyd Salas, who's been mentioned at great length here, author of Tattoo the Wicked Cross and Buffalo Nickel and many books, because he wants to say a brief mention about our 20th year. Floyd Salas. We don't have a stand, sorry.
20 years. PEN Oakland's been around for 20 years. Ishmael Reed's brainchild, created from the need to celebrate the work of the uncelebrated writers of this country, mainly people of color and those not recognized by the mainstream literary apparatus. 20 years, and still going strong, and still growing writers. Thank you.
Yes, as Ishmael mentioned, this is 20 years. We used to have primary support from the California Arts Council. When that went downhill, sort of about the time Schwarzenegger came into office, we have been struggling ever since. However, we have even considered not giving these awards, and thank goodness we have managed to scrape together the funds each time to come up with these awards, because we're very proud of the people who earn these awards with their unique gifts. I think you'll see by the introductions and the readings today that this is a wide range of different kinds of books that we have today. I do want to mention a number of people have asked how they can submit to the awards. We have a new webmaster who is actually Tony Rodriguez right here. Tony's one of our new board members, and he also writes for the Examiner.com.
Yeah.
Examiner.com. He has a column, a literary column for Examiner.com. So if you have events and interesting things, contact Tony. Also, our new website URL is PENOakland.com. It used to be .org. So there you will find a number of interesting things. We're adding to it all the time, but it also has a submission policy. I think you were interested in that. Okay, let's get right to the awards. The first award is for, let me just explain the procedure. I will introduce the judge, or if the judge is not available, someone else who is familiar with the writer's work, and they will introduce the person, and then we will have the award winner come up and read briefly from their work. All right, and remember that we have Eric from Burton Beckett back there. He has all the books, and we're going to have opportunities for you to go back and purchase them from him. All right, so the first winner is Andrina Zawinski for her book of poems, Something About. The judge is Floyd Salas.
Andrina Zawinski's poetic range is immense, ranging from small illuminations about a poet driving or the feeling being stuck inside a coffee shop to the deep moments of a good daughter who speaks of death in plain fact. A nightmare in which she writes, the round ball of flesh that was muscle falls away from the bone into the cup of my hand. It's a horror of death in a dream. It's a power that comes to a poet sensitive to all aspects of her existence. It's my honor to present Andrina the PEN Oakland Literary Award for Something About.
I, like most of the award winners here, I'm very grateful for this PEN Oakland Award. I love that it's called the Working Class PEN. That seems perfect to me because my first book came out, Traveling in Reflected Light, through a press called Pig Iron Press, and it debuted through the Working Class Studies Department at Youngstown State in Ohio. As someone who grew up in working poor communities in the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a neighborhood aptly called the Bottoms, I'm proud to be up here today receiving this award from Working Class PEN. And since living in the Bay Area for over 10 years now, this local award for my latest book really means just as much as the first awards I got in my hometown for my first book. Something About is a collection of poems that are almost entirely written in Oakland. The poem I'll read to you today honors the worker in the tradition of so many other poets that I admire, from America's Whitman to Detroit's Philip Levine, to West Virginia's Maggie Anderson and Bogalusa's Yusuf Kamanyaka. The poem is called The Pickers. It first appeared in The Progressive, which just coincidentally had Barbara Lee's picture on the on the cover, which made me very happy. In this poem, there's a little cameo appearance of another past local writer, John Steinbeck, because he's in the field with the workers. He coined the phrase I use in here called the harvest gypsies. The epigraph to this poem is from Charles Wright's Against the American Grain. It says, "Stronger and stronger, the sunlight blues the afternoon to its objects. The pickers, back-bent and dozens abreast, rise before the sun, past the blonde grasses, behind the concertina wire running between Soledad and Salinas. They move in squats, toss artichokes from sun-pocked fields into pickup cabs, calloused fingers pricked by thorny thistles. They pour seeds into rivulets of dry earth that will burst into lettuce, chard, the great bouquets of broccoli and cabbage along El Camino Real's humpback hills, where foremen watch, arms folded across their dusty boredom, and the long light of days stretching inside another summer. Bodies at work, long after limbs tire, long after chests heave beneath bird bone beads, abalone shells, scapulars dangling from red strings, or even chains of gold glinting off the sun. Faces muffled in scarves and hoods, sweat scenting the air, backbent and dozens abreast, birthing a history of earth. And so they move, these pickers, silhouetted against the horizon, westerly winds crossing groves and vineyards farther north, farther south. They move, follow the crops, follow the seasons. Steinbeck's ghost among the harvest gypsies, pen in one hand, pail in the other, working towards some end. As sure as low clouds cool the day down, the bodies turn toward evening. Lay down the ache of the field in the stretch of legs, slope of shoulders, move toward dreams of the unburned, pain-free, unafraid, unspent paper in the pocket for some half-hold of a home on the road, birds skittering tree branches at sunset, pecking at the unpicked. Somebody just mentioned they've just bought this book, and she said, I like the first poem right away. So I'll end with this one. It's called The Poet Driving. The poet, white-knuckled at the podium, drives the crowd and reeling, as if taking on mountainous S-curves or hydroplaning minefields. The poet maps metaphor in shagbark and hickory, staggering the dappled sundown. This could be Kansas, Saigon, Mozambique, Peoria, a road, bridge, underpass, where the poet dresses deathbeds in thin sheets of memory. The clenched fist becomes an open hand, fingers that point press into prayer. And our silences grow ravenous for this. We choke down whole landscapes, drink in cloudbursts, throb with the starlit sky. We lean into the words like a slow dance, pinned to ourselves like a corsage, like a lover, like a poem, like the language of applause.
Thank you, Andrea. Next up is Elizabeth Nunez for Anna in Between. And the judge for this is Tennessee Reed. Tennessee?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Elizabeth Nunez is the author of 7 novels. Anna in Between, Occasion 2009, received star reviews from Publishers Weekly, Booklist, and Library Journal, and was a New York Times editor choice. Her other novels include Prospero's Daughter, New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice 2006, Florida Center for the Literary Arts One Book, One Community Selection 2006 Novel of the Year for Black Issues Book Review, and 2010 Trinidad and Tobago Nationwide Read. Bruce Hibiscus American Book Award, Discretion, shortlisted for the Hurston Wright Legacy Award, Grace, Beyond the Limbo Silence, Independent Publishers Book Award in Multicultural Fiction category, and When Rocks Dance. Nunez is a distinguished professor at Hunter College, the City University of New York, where she teaches creative writing fiction. And Elizabeth Nunez was not able to come out here to the award, so I'm going to read an excerpt from her latest novel, Anna in Between. Later that afternoon, Anna calls her boss at the Windsor Publishing Company, where she works in New York, to say that she needs to stay in the Caribbean for another week. Her mother is ill. She needs her. Her boss is sympathetic. She will assign Anna's book to another editor, she says. Her easy acquiescence troubles Anna. Every ambitious editor has her sights set on New York. Is there someone younger and brighter waiting in the wings to take her job? Will her position as the head of Equiano, Windsor's imprint for books by writers of color, still be there for when she returns? Anna does not ask her boss these questions directly. She asks whether there are any problems brewing at Equiano, anything she needs to know. Her boss laughs. On the contrary, she says, sales are picking up. Urban Lit is taking off. We can't publish enough of it. There's a huge pool of young black readers out there who are just waiting to lap it up. Urban Lit, Chick Lit, it's all the rage. We even have a new category, she says, Ghetto Lit. She laughs so loudly, Anna has to remove the receiver from her ear. This is not what Anna wants to hear. These are not the books she wants Equiano to publish. And people used to say there wasn't a market for a book by black writers. Her boss gloats. Look at what's happening now. People. Her boss means white people. Her boss means the marketplace of black readers. Her boss believes that books by black writers have no relevance to people's lives. This is the essence of racism, Anna thinks. The refusal of people to see themselves in the lives of others whose skin color is different than theirs. Fiction best achieves the universal through the specific. It is by telling stories that are plausible, about characters who are believable, that the writer eases us into exploring the many facets of the human condition. So what if the specific characters are people of color? What if the worlds they inhabit are the worlds inhabited by people of color? Are there universals for white people and other universals for people of color? She grew up reading Enid Blyton. She sought adventures vicariously with the pink-cheeked English children of Blyton's Mysteries novels. As an adult, she found herself in the heroines of Jane Austen's novels. Shakespeare, Blake, Keats, Wordsworth all spoke to her. It didn't matter that they were English, but her boss at Windsor seems to think that the reverse is not possible. The white readers cannot find themselves in the lives of black characters. They refuse, Anna thinks, they refuse to find themselves in black characters. To see the commonalities we share as human beings is to bring down the wall that separates us, that has brought considerable financial profit to many, that has allowed many to delude themselves with notions of their superiority. In bookstores, American literature is separated. American literature on one side, African American literature on the other. People like being with people they know. People have things in common with them, Anna's boss says, defending the company's position on niche marketing and explaining to Anna why it was profitable for them to market the books they published according to the color of the writer. Books are not people, Anna wanted to shout back at her. Books do not choose to be with other books that have things in common with them. At Windsor, we facilitate access, her boss says. Access, that perniciously deceptive A word. Does nuclear proliferation have a color? Is there one kind of moral philosophy for white people and another for black people? Does the color of one's skin determine one's ability to analyze literature? Anna fails to understand why a book that has nothing to do with cultural differences, a book on nuclear proliferation, for example, or a moral philosophy, ends up in the African American section of a bookstore, or even a library, because the writer is African American, or why, because the scholar is African American, exegesis on Milton is placed here. She wants her boss to publish a novel by a black writer that is neither urban lit or ghetto lit or chick lit. Bess Milford, the author, is a fine writer. She's a writer who uses the magic of language to open up a world in which her characters struggle to reconcile their private desires with their public responsibilities. Her novel tells a human story, but it is a story about people with black skin who live in communities with other people with black skin. I'm not sure this novel will earn its advance, her boss says. Does that mean you're not going to publish it? Yes, of course I will publish it. I trust your judgment, but I must warn you, there won't be much of an advance, and not much either for publicity. It is a death sentence. No book sells itself. Anna makes that point, and her boss listens patiently, but she already has made up her mind. It's the best I can offer, she says. This is the reason why she must return to New York. She needs to be there to fight for her writer. If the book does not sell, her boss will not publish the writer's next book. But she must choose what matters most. She wants, needs to be with her mother. I'll fax my note, she says. Take all the time you need, her boss replies. Thank you.
Thank you, Tennessee. I neglected to say that Tennessee Reed is also a poet and the author of a memoir. What's the name of the memoir? Spell Albuquerque. That's right. Great title. Very well received. She traveled nationwide to promote it. And she and Ishmael are also the co-chairs of this event. So thank you very much. All right. And next we have Sharon. Do you know? She's here. Okay, great. Next we have Eto Adnan for Master of the Eclipse. Presenting the award is the poet Sharon Dubiago.
Etel Adnan was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1925, of a Christian Greek mother and a Muslim Syrian father. Beirut, this is a quote from the book, Beirut in the 30s was itself a pre-adolescent city, newly installed as the capital for a nation carved out by the Allies from Syria. It smelled of jasmine and orange blossoms, and you could look at the sea from almost any street. Master of the Eclipse is a collection of memoir stories ranging from girlhood in Beirut to adulthood in Paris and the Bay Area. For many years, Adnan taught philosophy of art at Dominican College in Santa Fe. The mysterious, near-omniscient narrator chronicles in breathtaking, heartbreaking, metaphorical stories the eclipse of not just the Arab world, but of the Western one also. She has been chronicling the apocalypse. The Arab apocalypse is one of her book-length poems for much of her life in poetry, painting, criticism, and fiction. Her novel, Sit Marie Rose, 1978, is considered a feminist classic of the Lebanese Civil War. What are poets for in these destitute times? The title story, brilliant and stunning both poetically and politically, is of the Kurdish-Iraqi poet Ulan al-Hadari and the poetry festivals at which she encountered him in Baghdad and Sicily, and his death from alcoholism in London in 1996. It is a story of the downward spiral of the poet in exile from his beloved country, as it is both self-destructing and being destroyed. I'm a living wound because I know they're setting fire to my country because they envy its immemorial mystic power. Credited with having both credited with having brought free verse to Arab poetry in the 40s. Boulan's greatest shame was that he loved Saddam Hussein, who in turn loved poetry. This is really tragic. I know it sounds funny. The story is, this is incredible. Who is the master? On first reading, I assumed Saddam, master of the eclipse. I assumed Saddam, but on subsequent readings, I've seen Boulan, then his scholar, the University of Virginia professor agent, the big I, the guardian of a supreme power, the exact equivalent of the military, the bombers, the movie directors and journalists, all of us, except those going righteously mad in our bulletproof jackets. The ironic symbolism and metaphors that those literary terms work here are profound. Ibn Arabi, Walter Benjamin, the angel of history, Paul Klee's angels, the painter who in World War I painted airplane wings, prostitutes, suitcases in Syria of counterfeit money from California, lovers driven mad for the muse they cannot touch, and the narrator's love of women. American Melody is surely one of the most ironic but lyrical pieces written in recent history. Refugees trying to get to the America that's destroying their country. Better to be in the tornado's eye than in its path. The making of the movies, the making of the news, the boy who digs up, washes and delivers real corpses for the Hollywood movie mogul who refuses to pay him the small asking wage. Love me, Kulthum was singing, even if you have to curse me. They ended up in Lebanon with only their clothes on and father's black little radio, a son dead and a father insane because of that radio, those voices in all their different languages penetrating their souls. All the shelling and the dying, they announced everything except the sorrow. That's what Adnan's stories are about, most of all, the sorrow. The eclipse, yes, yet. They say Palestine smells good. She's worth our lives. But I'm not going to die. How can I? I am not yet born. I will be born over there on the road to Haifa, as in the days of my grandparents. This is a really incredible book, but she couldn't be here. She's 85. She couldn't take the long plane trip. So representing her will be Lindsay Bolt from Apollo Press.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay and I'm here as a friend of Attell's and an editor for the Post Apollo Press, which published many of her books, but not this one, not Master of the Eclipse. So I'll read a few words from Attell. She sent by email, and I just want to say I'm very happy and proud to be here in her stead. I'm extremely pleased to receive this award and thank the committee who decided to give it to me, and particularly Sharon Dubiago, whose friendship I value and whose work I particularly appreciate. I'm not the recipient of many awards, but this one touches me particularly, as it comes from the Bay Area, which is home, and a place that is a major part of my thinking and my work. I wish I were present to receive this award, but I am these times weary of airplanes, and it would have been difficult for me to travel. But I am extremely thankful, and am sending you my most friendly thoughts. Attell Adnan.
Thank you. The next award winner is Mitch Horowitz for Occult America, The Secret History of How Mysticism Shaped Our Nation. The awarding judge for this is Kim McMillan, who's, as Ishmael mentioned, is a huge part of PEN Oakland. She could not be here today. Kim, as you know, is a dramatist and a short story writer. However, nicely volunteering is Lori Fox, who is the author of Lost Girls and My Sister from the Black Lagoon, and she will introduce Mitch. Lori, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. It's a true pleasure to introduce Mitch Horowitz. Mitch is the editor-in-chief of the Tarcher imprint at Penguin in New York, and he's flown here to be with you today. He's the author of Occult America from Bantam, which the Washington Post Book World called fascinating, a serious, wide-ranging study of all the magical, mystical, and spiritual movements that have arisen and influenced American history in often surprising ways. Mitch has recently written for the U.S. News and World Report, the Washington Post, Big Think, and Boing Boing. He has appeared on CBS Sunday Morning, Dateline NBC, and All Things Considered. He gives walking tours of the occult in Manhattan, which are very exciting. He and his wife are raising 2 young boys in New York City. You can visit him and learn more about his work at mitchhorowitz.com. And it's a true pleasure to introduce him as we do work together. I'm based in Berkeley as an agent, and Mitch has brought a true passion, a deep scholarship, and a nobility to this subject matter. And I'm really thrilled to represent him and to introduce him to you today, Mitch Horowitz.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very pleased to be here. If you hear screaming during my presentation, that'll be my wife back home with our 2 boys. So, I want to express, although she's not here, I want to express a special thanks to my wife, Allison, who makes so much my work possible, and I hope I do the same for her. I wrote Occult America because I felt that it was necessary to write a history of supernatural and occult and esoteric and New Age religious systems as religious history. I felt that the people who have been involved in esoteric and alternative religious philosophies in this country, really going back to a time before there was a country, have always been treated like they've been part of some social trend that can perhaps be explained by something that was happening in the climate of the society, some reaction or response to something else. But at no point in most works of history were their beliefs and their sense of faith taken seriously and honored, at least to the extent that they would be considered a community of belief like the members of any other historic faith. I'm speaking about movements that have to do with spiritualism, channeling, hoodoo, Santeria, a whole range of belief systems in this country that have never really been written about and understood in the context of our religious history, but are such an important part of it. So I'm going to read you a short passage from my book, Occult America, that deals just briefly with one aspect of the experience of spiritualism in this country as that philosophy began to spread in the mid-19th century. Spiritualism, as I'm sure many of you know, had to do with seances and spirit raps and talking to the dead, and it figured very significantly into the lives of many Americans, as I hope this brief passage will convey. When facing the tragedies of death, many families were remarkably alike. In this sense, the spiritualist experience was typified by the household of the most famous family in the nation, the Lincolns. Several months after occupying the White House, in March of 1861, Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln experienced the nightmare of so many mid-century parents. Their 11-year-old son, Willie, was gripped by a serious fever, probably from typhus. A sensitive, precociously religious child with a keen mind and a love for adult company, Willie was the family favorite. He was seen holding hands with his father, whom he sometimes accompanied on official trips, the two sharing a room together. After illness struck, weeks of struggle and bedside vigils did no good. In February of 1862, the boy died late one afternoon. "My poor boy," Lincoln said at the bedside. "He was too good for this earth. God has called him home. I know that he is much better off in heaven, but then we loved him so. It is hard. hard to have him die. For Mary Todd, the loss was too great. She began to frequent trance mediums in desperate hope of contact. And in the aggrieved mother's heart, contact did occur. One evening, she rushed into the room of her half-sister, who had served as a nursemaid to Willie. "He lives, Emily," the First Lady exclaimed. "He comes to me every night and stands at the foot of my bed with that same sweet, adorable smile he always had." Mary Todd's was the kind of story told time and again, repeated in newspapers and letters by people from every walk of life who eloquently, if agonizingly, testified to the reality of another world. For those Americans who ardently believed, spiritualism provided some of the most moving and deeply affecting experiences of their lives. Thank you all very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, the next winner is Clifton Ross for Translations from Silence, New and Selected Poems. The presenting judge is John Curl, who is a poet and the author of the novel Drop City. John? Also our Vice President.
Many of you might know Cliff Ross best from his translations, which have been doing for many, many years of primarily of Central American poets and writers, from writings of Sandino, Nicaraguan poets, Ernesto Cardenal, and many other poets, mostly very deep radical poetry of a Latin American tradition. But if you frequent poetry readings in the Bay Area, many of you will also know the other Cliff Ross, which is Cliff Ross, the poet from his own poetry. And this book is really translated. It's called Translations from Silence, and it's the perfect title for a book from Cliff Ross, because his poetry goes really deep into himself, into that source where all poetry, all the magic of words come from. And he has a kind of really deep honesty about him, and he's able to go into that place and pull it forth and to translate it into the words in the English language. So I don't want to take up too much time, because Cliff's poetry can speak for themselves. So here's Cliff Ross.
Thank you, John. And thank you to PEN Oakland for this award, for making this award to a Richmond poet. We don't have a blue-collar award there. We probably have the frayed-collar award. I'm going to read just two poems. I spent a bit of time in South America, traveling around, and happened to be in Bolivia just at the time of the couple of months after Evo Morales became president. And this is a poem that didn't make it into I was kind of sweeping up the crumbs around my computer after I published the book, and this is one of the poems that didn't quite get in the book. I guess you could say one of the crumbs that didn't make it in the book. So it's called Night, and it's from a triptych that was published in our literary journal at Berkeley City College, Millia Street. It's called Hope is an Intransitive Verb. And yes. Hope is an intransitive verb. In this darkness, when even the possibility of light is denied, the time to dream has arrived. The first people have returned with torches that outshine the street lights. They have blessed the city with corn and feathered prayers. They have spoken with one voice this word that reverberates from their cupped hands. They have poured the bounty of the past into the vacant heart of the future. They have harvested the clouds and poured that bounty on the deserts. They plowed the metals back into the mountains, and from El Alto, they await the beginning. Already smoke rises from the cities. Already the seas rise to claim the stolen land. Now children of the nightmare scream for pity, but the old ones no longer listen. They gather stones in piles for the children of the earth's intifada that will herald the coming of the dawn. And I'm going to end with this other poem, which actually ends my book. It's called Quarter Truth for a Half-Opened Window. And I have a little quote from Edmond Jabet from the Book of Resemblances. Silence is inside the word as something to be discovered. A book is forever to be lost. As I wrote, a word slipped from the sentence and sneaked to the edge of the sheet. It hung there an instant, suspended above the abyss of its own being, then slid the infinity to my desk, where it forever avoided erasure. The sentence trembled like two pillars where Samson once stood, and then it collapsed into dust and rubble. The paragraph slipped quickly like sand through an hourglass, and before I could do more than blink, the book I was writing began to disappear, vanishing in a flash of dust and leaving only the vaguest scent of language in the room. Enraged, I chased the word, but the black letters became a fly that lazily and clumsily buzzed in a spiral toward the window and out into the cool air of autumn. It grew into a crow that rose into the white clouds toward a patch of blue. But as it embraced the blue, the sky darkened, and the clouds grew blue with letters, phonemes, diphthongs, syllables, and all manner of utterances, colliding and conjoining and tumbling into an inarticulate verbal storm that thundered and broke loose on the dry earth. And now, in my garden, among the gangly cosmos, brown tomato plants, and velvet green potato leaves, running in streams around outlandish squash leaves, and the imperial chaos of strawberry plants, all I never thought to say seeps into what I forgot, a river of stuttering consonants rushing toward a single, vast, open vowel, the mouth of a speechless sea. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ishmael again, who will be the presenting judge for Ivan J. Houston for Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II, Memories of the Only Negro Infantry Division to Fight in Europe. Ishmael?
I don't know if you saw the latest installment of the Nixon tapes today, where he took down just about every ethnic group. You know, the Irish are alcoholics, the Italians are not bright. He didn't get around to the Hispanics. Give him time. So he made a lot of disparaging remarks. I happen to see another side of the Italian-American experience, the one that you don't see in the media, which gives us Godfather and Elliot Ness, and all the Italian-Americans are criminals, and the so-called organized crime element represents like 1% of 1%, a fraction of 1% of the Italian-American experience. So we went over to San Francisco a few months ago, and there was an audience full of Italian-Americans and Italians. And this ceremony was organized by the head of the Italian consulate in San Francisco, and they were there to honor the Black Buffalo Soldiers of World War II. And it was like old home week because the soldiers and the Italians had bonded during the war as the black soldiers had liberated Italian towns. As a matter of fact, the mayor of Tuscany recognized the valor of the black soldiers long before the United States did. They didn't receive Congressional Medal of Honor until the Clinton administration. So they were, and the consulate head was almost in tears as he said, "We will never forget the valor of these soldiers." This book by Ivy Houston, who's not able to be here, was self-published. Because the myth in American history is that African Americans are cowards and can't fight. This was the idea that circulated during World War II. But there were 5,000 African American soldiers who participated in the Revolutionary War. As a matter of fact, the key event of the Revolution included blacks and Irish, who were disparaged by John Adams. He was all of a sudden a big hero in this miniseries. But he made very disparaging remarks about the Italians, the Irish Americans and blacks who participated in the Boston Massacre. Okay, and he went and he defended the British soldiers, just like a Tory, or Tory sympathizer. African American soldiers fought in the Civil War. As a matter of fact, there's a rumor that Lee surrendered because he's being chased by African American troops all night. The African American Air Force, the Tuskegee Airmen, were the first to reach the Rhine River. So I didn't know any of this stuff when I went to school. And I guess that's why Nixon made these statements, because of his education in the media. So the next person who gets caught, like Vic the Greek or one of those people, or John Imus, I want them to sue the educational institutions that taught them about American history. So we're very happy to accept this award for Ivy Houston, and also to remind everybody that African American soldiers have participated in a number of wars, the men and the women. There were 1 million who fought in World War II or provided backups. Matter of fact, the whites who manned the B-52s were very wary of having Tuskegee Airmen escort them. And they said these guys are flying planes, they're almost like dancing, these planes. But after a while, they requested them first because of their valor. So if you want to see a good movie about that experience in Italy, that's Spike Lee's Miracle at St. Anna. It was presented only one time out here, one showing in Oakland at 10:30 at night. Everybody lined up to see Precious Show, and all the lines around the block. You knew how to get that in there, but nobody seemed to be interested in that. There are two good books too. Captain Black Man by Johnny Williams, and the great book, And Then We Heard the Thunder by the late John O'Killer. So thanks very much for this award. And I want to say that at the end we're having a reception, is that correct?
Yes.
And I want to put a box up here, and I want you all to come up and put money in there, make the checks out to PEN Oakland, and because we're $73 over budget. That's a big surprise here. It's just $73 too much. Okay.
Thank you, Ishmael. Here, over here. Give it to him later. Just an aside about that book, which I haven't read, but I'm going to buy. And you mentioned that it was self-published. I've done for my novel, I did a lot of research on World War II, actually, both novels. And these books that people write and sometimes can't get published in the trade presses, they are fascinating and terribly necessary additions to history, and you have to look for them and look for them. So I'm glad that we've given Ivan Houston's a little more publicity, because these kinds of books are, as Ishmael was saying, very necessary. Okay, the next winner is Manuel Ruben Delgado for The Last Chicano. The presenting judge is Lucha Corby, who writes those wonderful Hispanic mysteries, among other things. Lucha, and she's also on our board. Lucha?
Well, there are a lot of criminals in Oakland. Welcome, criminals. But in the sister city also, the neighbor Berkeley, there were also a lot of criminals, especially 40 years ago, when we had civil disobedience. Now how many of you were involved in that? Now be honest. Very good. So you criminals, when minorities were so very few on campus, and students of color began a movement to make the university accept more students of color. They were arrested, they were gassed. You might remember Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, and he made sure that he sent the National Guard for the first time to a campus, I believe, in the nation, but certainly in California, to put down the revolt of what a Chicano writer at the time said of the cockroach people. It is at this time that Manuel Delgado comes to Berkeley in 1968, 67, 68. And one thing about this book, which you will find very interesting, I am sure, especially since you live in this area and you have participated in a lot of activities, criminal activities. So you will find it very interesting because as things go in this country, 40 years ago is already history. So without further ado, just one thing. I'm sure you are like me wondering why the last Chicano. When I got the manuscript to write a blurb for it, I said, man, oh man, Manuel, change the title. You know, you're going to get killed because there are still a lot of Chicanos out there, you know. But he had a very good explanation as to why, and I will let him tell you.
I won't have trouble holding the microphone, speaking, and hands up at the same time. As I've lost some weight recently, and I didn't realize that.
Use the mic.
Use the mic. First of all, let me thank Luchan for submitting my name. This is something that I didn't expect, because I'm not a real author in the sense that I've written other books and I don't run literary circles and so on. Oh, Mike. Okay. Can you hear me back there now?
Claire.
Okay, but just to say something, I don't think we're criminals as much as we're enemies of the state. And I think a good American has to be an enemy of the state. Okay, let me start off by saying that you have to have a big ego to think you are so important, or that you have something so important to say that people are going to run out and buy your books. And so, yeah, I was famous for about a year and a half. That was about almost 50 years ago now. So, But after the 10th, 20th, and 30th anniversary of the Third World Liberation Front strike, it was a strike where Mexican Americans joined with Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Korean students, Native American students. First time in the country that happened. Hey, Joey. My niece back. And my sister Becky back there. Yeah, so this is the first time that it happened anywhere in the country. And we joined forces to fight for ethnic studies. And it was the longest, most violent student strike in California history. Not because we made it that way, but because Governor Reagan was not going to give in. And daily we fought thousands, if not, hundreds, if not thousands of policemen every day. California had